Imagine a place where the truth is known to everyone, but speaking it out loud is dangerous, where a last name matters more than the law, where a young woman's life can be worth less than the reputation of a powerful family. In the Argentine province of Catamarca Province, this was not a metaphor, it was reality. In 1990, the brutal murder of 17-year-old Maria Soledad Morales shook the nation and shattered the illusion of elite impunity. People swore, never again. But in 2020, history repeated itself. Another young woman, another son of a powerful family, another attempt to hide the truth. What changed over those 30 years? And did Catamarca change at all? Today, a story about power, impunity, and the women whose deaths changed a country. Catamarca Province is a high-altitude region in the Andes, known for its volcanoes, salt flats, and extreme mountain peaks. Tragically, in this picturesque place, provincial dynasties have long ruled with an iron hand, and young women have learned through bitter experience that some men are untouchable. Everyone knew the truth, but no one dared to say it out loud. That was the case until 1990, when one incident ignited a revolution the elite could not control. In 1990, Maria Soledad Morales was 17 years old. A quiet, diligent girl from a modest family, she took her studies seriously and dreamed of something beyond her small town. Her dreams ended on September 7th, when she attended a school fundraiser for the graduating class trip. She had no idea that she was being watched with open interest. Luis Raul Tula, a young local radio employee, and Guillermo Daniel Luque, the son of an influential congressman, pulled up beside her in a car belonging to Arnoldito Saadi, cousin of the province's governor, Ramon Saadi. Somehow, they convinced Maria to get into the car, but instead of taking her home, they drove her to a place where their friends were already waiting, sons and nephews of powerful men. Among them were Miguel Ángel Ferreira, the son of Catamarca's police chief, and Pablo Jalil and Diego Jalil, nephews of the mayor. Throughout the night, they subjected her to horrific abuse. Maria was given sedatives, forcibly injected with illegal substances, burned with cigarettes, beaten, and sexually assaulted. She was likely not their first victim, but this time, they went too far. When they realized she was no longer responsive, their only concern was avoiding scandal. Her lifeless body was carried to a car, driven away, and discarded like trash. 3 days later, Maria's disfigured body was found on a road 7 kilometers from the city. She was partially unclothed, her hair cut to conceal evidence, her body showing signs of having been dragged. The police arrived at their mission, as the saying goes, to serve and protect. But here, the sentence lacked its ending: protect the local elite. Officers saw the injuries, saw the brutality, yet attempted to cover up the truth. Witnesses were threatened. Fingerprints were not properly compared. The original report was altered. Authorities insisted she had died from a fall. The police chief even ordered Maria's body to be washed to destroy DNA evidence. Governor Ramon Saadi and the entire local political structure did everything possible to bury the case. The families of the suspect stood firmly behind them. Congressman Ángel Luque, Guillermo's father, even dared to say that if his son had been guilty, the body would never have been found. The message was clear: the life of a teenage girl meant less than the reputation of a political dynasty. But Catamarca underestimated its women. They refused to let Maria become just another line in a police report. Horrified by the injustice, Sister Martha Poloni organized a series of silent marches, the first of their kind in Argentina. The entire country watched as a small province rose up against men who believed themselves above the law and beyond consequences. Thanks to their persistence, the case was reopened. After years of silence and after the Saadi dynasty lost political power, the killers were brought to trial. Guillermo Daniel Luque was found guilty of rape and participation in the murder, and Luis Raul Tula was convicted as an accomplice. Although it was widely believed that 4 to 6 other men were involved, and justice was only partially served, it was something. Maria did not choose her fate, but her death broke a nation's silence. She toppled political giants and became a symbol for every girl harmed by a powerful man. 30 years later, the people of Catamarca Province had not forgotten Maria. In this province, where powerful families still control politics and the economy, a new tragedy unfolded in early 2020. But could it be that, even if barely noticeable, some change had occurred? Early in the morning on March 1st, 2020, Maria Espeche opened the door to the room of her 24-year-old daughter, Brenda Micaela Gordillo. Although it was a Sunday, Brenda was expected at work at the Catamarca Municipal Office, so her mother, as usual, came to wake her. But this time, when Maria opened the door, she saw that her daughter's bed was empty. There was nothing unusual about that. Brenda was 24 and quite independent, so nothing prevented her from spending the night elsewhere, as she had done before. But when some time passed and Brenda had not appeared at home or at work, and she did not answer her phone, her family began to worry. Ivan, Brenda's 29-year-old older brother, decided to search for his sister. He knew her habits, favorite places, and many of her friends better than anyone. He went to all the places she usually visited. He even stopped by the hockey club, knowing that when she wasn't at work, she often spent time on the ice. He spoke with her friends, who told him they last saw Brenda in the evening when she had gone to a friend's birthday party. She left after midnight, and they never saw her again. Although Ivan couldn't find Brenda, he did spot her white Volkswagen in the central town square, clearly parked there since the previous night. Alarmed, the family combed the surrounding streets, questioned shopkeepers, and even asked passers-by. Maria, her mother, felt the fear every parent dreads. Something bad had happened to her daughter. The family contacted the police. The officers took the missing person report seriously, but the challenge lay in Brenda's remarkable privacy. She rarely shared with her family where she liked to go, who she met, or how she spent her evenings. Her mother and brothers knew she had friends she spent time with, and had once shown Ivan a photo of a boy she liked. That was all they knew. For the police, there was no clear starting point for the investigation. The first few hours are crucial in missing person cases, and just when the authorities should have been rushing to find her, they were already at a dead end. Night fell over the city, but Ivan couldn't sit still. He drove through the streets searching for his younger sister. Maria, too, didn't sleep that night. She listened for the slightest sound, hoping to hear her daughter's key turn in the lock. She kept checking Brenda's room, hoping she had somehow slipped back home unnoticed. But it was in vain, because someone had already provided the answers to all her questions. On March 1st, a young man, accompanied by his parents and a lawyer, walked into the Catamarca police station. His name was Naim Vera. His father, Oscar Vera, was a respected surgeon in the province, and his mother, Marcela Vera, a highly skilled kinesiologist. Both were top professionals, and the family was very influential. Oscar and Marcela had raised 4 sons, but the black sheep turned out to be 19-year-old Naim, who came to confess to committing a crime. The young man told police that he had spent Saturday night into Sunday with a female friend, with whom he had an exclusively intimate relationship. But that night, they argued, and in the heat of the quarrel, Naim's guest tripped and fell down the stairs. The fall proved fatal. Panicking instead of calling for help, the young man disposed of the body. Naim led the police to the apartment where he had spent time with the girl. The apartment belonged to his grandmother, but because it was conveniently located across from the National University of Catamarca, the family usually rented it to students. At the time, the apartment was vacant, and Naim had been using it for his own purposes. The officers were struck by the apartment's astonishing cleanliness. The air carried the scent of cleaning products, and the staircase gleamed so brightly that it was hard to imagine it could have been the site of the girl's death. But the worst was still to come. Naim was about to lead the police to the girl's body, or rather, to what remained of it. First, Naim pointed the police to a trash bin near the apartment. It was there that they discovered a charred half of the girl's body. The remains were burned beyond recognition. The second burned portion had been buried in a ravine by the Tala River on the outskirts of the city. In other words, Naim had burned the girl's body and scattered the remains in 2 separate locations. Investigators had never seen anything like this in their careers. Naim claimed that he barely knew the girl, that he didn't even know her last name or where she lived. Yet among his personal belongings, investigators found a card with the victim's social security number, which listed the name Brenda Micaela Gordillo. Naim had kept the document even after disposing of the body. A gruesome trophy or mere carelessness? The investigators were not yet ready to answer that question. Many details remained unclear, but once they learned the victim's name, the police faced another grim and incredibly difficult task: informing Brenda's family of her death. Upon hearing the news, Maria fainted. She was so shocked that she spent several days in bed, unable to eat or drink. Meanwhile, the pathologist conducted an autopsy and confirmed the investigators' suspicions. Naeem had not told the whole truth, and what he had kept silent about was far worse than what he had already admitted. Brenda's death was not an accident. She had not fallen down the stairs. She died from asphyxiation, strangled with a piece of fabric forced down her throat. It was a torturous death, preceded by prolonged agony. But before she died, Brenda fought back, fiercely scratching her killer's skin. The police, in fact, noticed fresh scratches on Naeem's hands when they spoke with him at the station. From that moment, the authorities began investigating just how far the young man had gone in his lies. Here's the picture the investigators pieced together from surveillance footage and witness statements. On the night of March 1st, Brenda once again congratulated her friend on her birthday, said goodbye to the other friends, and went to meet Naeem, who had invited her on a date. She left her car in the square and entered the apartment at 1:48 a.m. Inside, Naeem suddenly attacked Brenda. He was about 30 centimeters taller than the fragile young woman and far stronger. The struggle, though desperate, was brief. He immobilized Brenda and strangled her, forcing her own clothing into her mouth. Brenda died in horrific agony, suffocating at the hands of someone she had trusted. Afterward, Naeem attempted something unimaginable. He placed her body on a grill, planning to cremate it by dousing it with strong alcohol he had bought in advance. But he miscalculated. Cremation requires temperatures sometimes reaching 1,200 degrees Celsius, whereas Naeem's grill could only reach about 400 degrees. The process went horribly wrong. Smoke drew the attention of neighbors. One neighbor, looking out her window, was shocked to see Naeem cooking something on the grill in the dead of night. But Naeem saw her too, and had the presence of mind to wave politely. The woman returned to bed. Meanwhile, under the heat and fire, Brenda's body split into two parts, and Naeem moved on to Plan B. He threw half of the body into a trash container near the apartment and transported the other half to the river, borrowing his father's van to get there. After burying the second half, he returned to his car and tried to collect himself. At that moment, two police officers noticed him. Showing no sign of nervousness, he explained that he had stopped to send a message while heading home. The officers let him go, unaware that they had just encountered the killer who had buried the second half of his victim's body. He still had a few important tasks to complete. He cleaned his grandmother's apartment, took a shower, changed clothes, washed the dirty garments, and finally returned his father's van. Then he sent a message to his friend Facundo Manzur Soria. That early morning, Facundo hadn't been asleep but was spending time with friends, and Naeem went to meet him. But the last thing Facundo expected to hear from his friend was this: he had killed Brenda. Naeem recounted the murder with terrifying frankness. He had previously told Facundo that Brenda was driving him crazy and that he would definitely kill someone, either her or himself. Facundo had always thought he was joking badly. He never imagined Naeem could be serious about wanting to kill someone, yet his friend's confession was disturbingly precise and detailed. Shocked, Facundo asked Naeem to leave and immediately contacted Naeem's brother, relaying what he had just heard. The brother shared the information with their parents, and together they persuaded Naeem to go to the police and report the crime. Interestingly, although none of Naeem's acquaintances believed he was capable of murder, they openly told his girlfriend Brenda that she could find someone better. Yes, to his girlfriend. She was his girlfriend, and his friends, including Facundo, were fully aware of their relationship. The two had met at a bar on November 24, 2019, and had started dating, a relationship Naeem would later try to disown. Yet he had a very significant reason for doing so. At the time of Brenda's death, they had known each other just over 3 months. In February, she told her boyfriend that she was pregnant. For Naeem, the news struck like a thunderclap on a clear day, a revelation that threatened to shatter all his dreams for the future. Naeem Vera had been an outstanding student, preparing to enter the University of Córdoba, one of the most prestigious universities in Argentina. Although he had excellent grades, his social status alone opened doors wherever he went. His family not only fully supported his ambitions, but was also more than willing to pay for his education in Córdoba. A brilliant future awaited him. So Naim didn't hesitate. He immediately told Brenda that he intended to study and build a career, and that at 19 he was too young to become a father. He tried to persuade her to terminate the pregnancy, but she refused. She told him she would have the child, and he would be part of their son or daughter's life whether he liked it or not. She also informed Naim that she had already consulted a lawyer. Naim perceived the situation as a catastrophe, an obstacle to his future plans. He belonged to the provincial elite that considers itself above the rest of society. An unwanted pregnancy, a child conceived with a girl outside his social circle, was simply an unforeseen inconvenience. Naim placed his ambitions above everything else, including 1 or 2 human lives. He decided that his problem, Brenda and her pregnancy, needed to disappear. Naim began planning his girlfriend's murder. Unwilling to dirty his hands, he would have preferred to hire a hitman. Ideally, the person he hired would stab Brenda in the stomach, so she would lose the baby and possibly die along with it. Naim even managed to establish contacts in criminal circles and reached people supposedly willing to take the job. But any reasonably serious hitman turned out to be far too expensive for him. He then asked friends for help, including Facundo Manzur Soria, but no one took his word seriously for even a moment. Desperate, he decided to carry out the plan himself. He spent time thinking through the details, where, how, and when Brenda would die, and put his diabolical plan into action on the evening of February 29th. He contacted Brenda and asked her to meet under a false pretext. Perhaps he let her believe he had changed his mind about the pregnancy and was ready to take responsibility for their future child. Brenda trusted him, of course, and suspected nothing. She died in horrific agony, betrayed by the man she loved. Her killer surrendered to the police only because he was persuaded to do so, and even then he clung to a final hope that the medical examiner would fail to determine the true cause of death. If Facundo had not raised the alarm, and if Naim's brother had chosen to cover for him, instead of going to the police, Naim might have escaped justice. The trial began on May 5, 2021, marking a historic event for the province. For the first time since the case of Maria Soledad Morales, the hearing was fully recorded on video at the request of the civil parties. Naim Vera became the youngest defendant ever tried for the murder of a woman in Catamarca. He was brought in under heavy security, as the police feared vigilante justice. He apologized to the victim's family and his own, but his words lacked sincerity. Perhaps this was because, as a psychiatrist determined, he exhibits traits of a narcissistic psychopath, a combination of pathological narcissism and psychopathy characterized by a lack of empathy, emotional coldness, and cruelty. Such individuals use psychological manipulation, humiliation, and sadism to control their victims, taking pleasure in power. It is an extremely toxic personality type, driven by a need for superiority. In reality, Naim had not been very successful in hiding his true nature. One of his former classmates, Fernanda, reported that she had been regularly harassed by him. He and his friends insulted her in front of other students and even on the street, implying promiscuity. In an attempt to escape the nightmare, Fernanda changed schools. But that was not enough. Her harassers uploaded videos of her to an adult website, forcing her to leave the province permanently. Meanwhile, the defendant's lawyer tried desperately to argue that Naim and Brenda were not a couple. Under Argentine law, a murder carried a potential sentence of 16 years, and with exemplary behavior, he could be released much sooner. But murdering one's own girlfriend and committing femicide are two aggravating circumstances, which meant Naim faced life imprisonment. The difference, as you can see, was enormous. On May 14th, the court announced its verdict. Naim Vera was sentenced to life imprisonment for murder with two aggravating circumstances. He must serve a minimum of 51 years and will only be eligible for parole when he is 71 years old. But do you know what's truly tragic in this story? Beyond the death of the girl, of course. In fact, Brenda was not pregnant. During the autopsy, the medical examiner was able to confirm with certainty that the victim was not preparing to become a mother at the time of her death. Worse still, she suffered from a serious gynecological condition, and her chances of conceiving naturally were virtually zero. Brenda had simply experienced a delayed menstrual cycle, and the pregnancy test had been a false positive. Naeem killed and burned Brenda to prevent her from giving birth to a child who never existed. All they would have needed to do was visit a hospital together for him to see that she was not pregnant. Naeem murdered the girl solely to avoid taking responsibility for a potential fatherhood. He could never imagine her perspective, because he considered himself far superior to her in terms of gender and social standing. Outwardly a normal young man from a privileged family, he concealed within him a misogynistic monster, willing to kill to preserve his personal comfort. 30 years after the brutal murder of Maria Soledad Morales, a new tragedy unfolded in Catamarca, this time involving another narcissist convinced he could escape accountability. But this time, justice prevailed. Neither his friend, nor his brother, nor his parents attempted to shield him, despite everything. This means that positive changes in public consciousness have already occurred, perhaps invisible at first glance, but they exist.